While some people out there miss the natural process of meeting someone through friends or in public before sparking a romantic relationship, others are thankful that dating apps such as Tinder, Facebook dating, Bumble, Plenty of Fish, and others are available, meaning that they can scroll through dating candidates from the comfort of their own home. However, there's debate that online dating is much more dangerous than some would expect. These stories also help establish the fact that dating app-related crimes are on the rise, and everyone using these platforms should practice extra caution when meeting their crushes in person. Number 5. Mark Twitchell was a Canadian amateur filmmaker with a strange obsession surrounding the show Dexter. In 2008, Mark made plans to create a fake profile on the dating website Plenty of Fish, where he would pose as a woman and attract a random man that would later become his victim. 38-year-old John Bryan, or Johnny Altinger, began corresponding with a young woman on Plenty of Fish who he thought would become a romantic partner. The couple talked almost all day every day, and Johnny allegedly found himself falling in love with the wonderful woman he thought he was growing close to. In October of 2008, Johnny told his friends he was going to meet the woman in person and go on a date. Oddly though, Johnny never returned from this date. Emails were sent from his email account informing friends and loved ones that his new girlfriend had taken him on an extended vacation to Costa Rica, and he was unsure when he would be back, or even if he would be back. A letter of resignation was also sent from Johnny's place of work a few days after he vanished. A response was sent requesting an address for his final paycheck, but the company never received a response. Overall, it seemed unlikely and very out of character for Johnny to just vanish and run along with the woman that he just met online. For the most part, no one worried too much and just assumed that the man was finally taking some time to himself, but sadly the opposite turned out to be true. Some time passed and Johnny's friends broke into his abandoned apartment and found his passport still at home, making his story of fleeing to Costa Rica a little less convincing. A homicide investigation was then sparked, and by tracking the fake female profile back to Mark, police were able to apprehend and interrogate him. Mark claimed that he met with Johnny before the trip. Johnny allegedly told him that he wanted to flee the country and sold Mark his car for $40, all the cash that Mark had on him, because allegedly Johnny was apparently very desperate to part with his belongings. Of course, police didn't buy this story and later arrested Mark. On Mark's laptop, they found a deleted document which was recovered. The file was a rough draft of a book Mark allegedly planned to write. The first line of the story summarized the plot as Mark's progression into becoming a serial killer. At first, he tried to say that he killed Johnny as self-defense, and then used the details to craft a story structure to make it seem like a cold-blooded killing. However, another file provided the details of his attack on Johnny, and Mark eventually confessed. Throughout the trial, another victim was found that was lured to Mark's home on the Plenty of Fish profile and attacked in his garage for no good reason. He was charged for the loss of Johnny and for attempting to take the previous victim's life as well. In 2011, Mark was sentenced to life in prison with no parole for 25 years. Number 4. Catfishing is a term used to describe the act of someone creating an online profile, using photos from strangers without their permission to hide their own identity, used either for online dating or scamming. In this case, the suspect's motive for catfishing was much worse than the usual reasoning. In this case, the catfish wanted to kill. Manuel Guzman created a fake Facebook profile using a random woman's photo to attract the attention of a man and lure him into Manuel's sick plan. The first two men that were attracted to the profile grew suspicious after the woman refused to share a phone number even days after messaging back and forth. Lucky for them, those first two men backed out of the interaction, ultimately saving their own lives. But sadly, a 23-year-old boxer named Eddie Leal continued to interact with the catfish despite warning signs because according to his family, he was overly trusting of others. Eddie began to develop strong feelings of what he believed to be a genuine connection and the beautiful woman he thought he was talking to. After a while of chatting, Manuel suggested that Eddie plan a meeting with this woman. And Eddie agreed and plans were set. Eddie later arrived at a local park where he was supposed to meet the woman of his dreams, but instead he was faced with 19-year-old Manuel and a gun. Manuel slipped into the passenger seat next to Eddie and forced him to drive a few streets away in front of Manuel's house. Once there, Eddie was shot several times before Manuel fled the scene. Eddie's car later rolled into the rear of a parked car nearby and its remains were discovered. Police were immediately called to the scene and a homicide case was opened. It didn't take long though, thanks to technology, to track down the suspect and make an arrest. A clear motive was never determined, but the general assumption was that Manuel committed a thrill killing, and that was, in other words, just for fun. During his trial, Manuel delivered a statement which he blamed a long list of people and entities for his twisted thoughts. He shared details of his childhood and the trauma he claimed to have endured. He told the judge that the night he took Eddie's life, he was very intoxicated and emotional. He said that Eddie was the first person to really give the fake profile a chance. Manuel claimed that he stared into the mirror while holding a gun for a long time before Eddie arrived, just sobbing and telling himself he didn't have to do it. At some point, his motives changed and went through with the attack. He broke down in court but gained little to no sympathy. Manuel was sentenced to life in prison without parole and a consecutive sentence of 25 years to life. It seems that this would have been another case where meeting an online companion in a more public and crowded area would have been a safer idea, but sadly that's not what happened, and we can't blame the victim for trusting his fellow humans. Number 3. Sharon Hersman was an Aussie woman and single mother new to the dating world in 2013. Sharon created several online dating profiles on various sites and apps. Finally, on one app, she got lucky and was contacted by Jason John Dinsley, a clean-cut man who seemed kind. He offered Sharon a fun night out as they texted back and forth for a while. Sharon agreed and plans were made. Unfortunately, this date would turn out to be regretful. The pair's first date seemed to have gone well, giving Jason hope for the future. However, following that first date, Sharon somehow discovered that Jason was a convicted criminal with over 100 different charges in his resume and a few periods of time in prison. Considering she didn't know him very well and had a child to protect, Sharon took the information as a signal to cut ties with Jason. She informed him that they would not be having a second date. Many say this depressed Jason and of course wounded his precious ego. So in response to her rejection, Jason made a plan to attack her. Late one night in April of 2013, Jason went to Sharon's home, which he was able to locate thanks to their first date. He quietly snuck into the house and attacked Sharon while her child stood in a corner and watched the strange man hit his mother in the head with a bat several times. In a fit of rage and bits of fear, Jason fled the scene. The next morning, a concerned friend stopped by the house and found Sharon's son cowering in fear while his mother lay unconscious. The child told the visitor, "A man came in the house last night and hit mommy. Now she won't wake up and give me breakfast." The police were immediately called to the scene and a full-speed investigation opened. Once again, thanks to the internet and the help of Sharon's son, police were able to quickly apprehend Jason before he was able to cause any more harm in the world. He went to trial and was sentenced to life with no chance of parole. In this case, Sharon seemed to have done everything right to the best of her ability. She didn't meet up with him instantly, and on their first date they went to a public place, but once she found out about his dangerous lifestyle, cut ties, and that was absolutely the right thing to do, but unfortunately led to tragedy. Number 2. In this case, the victim wasn't using your typical dating service such as Tinder, Bumble, or Plenty of Fish. Instead, she turned to an online escort dating site where customers could book appointments with lovely escorts. We can't say for sure if these escorts worked specifically in the Department of Physical Intimacy or not, but whatever Venkata Qadam was planning for the evening, it was quickly derailed during this date. The 25-year-old software engineer was originally from India, but had made a new home in Michigan, where she was living when this tragedy happened in June of 2010. Venkata and then 23-year-old Jessica Ermatinger had been chatting for some time on the online platform for escorts and seeking new customers. Venkata was ready for things to take a step further and planned a meeting with the physically attractive young woman. The pair met at a nearby Wendy's where they grabbed a quick bite to eat and enjoyed some time conversing. Things seemed to be going well in Venkata's eyes, so he nudged the date along and they left the restaurant to get a hotel room. Jessica informed Venkata that she'd already had a room waiting, arranged by her boss, at the Easy Rest Motel nearby. Venkata happily followed along with the high hopes of having a thrilling evening. Once the couple walked into the room though, things took a dark turn quickly. As the door opened, Venkata was face to face with two large men and another woman waiting patiently inside. Very little details from here on are available to this case as far as exactly what happened, due to a lack of witnesses and varying stories. But regardless of exactly how it happened, Venkata was attacked and robbed by the group. His injuries were so severe that he didn't survive and passed away on the floor of the shady motel room. Then 28-year-old Kevin Huffman and 35-year-old James Randall were arrested in 2010 for their involvement in the case. The The women involved also faced charges but set up plea deals in exchange for testifying against the men. The women were given a lesser sentence. While an online escort service may not be everyone's cup of tea, that doesn't mean that you're completely safe against a similar attack. It's important to be very vigilant when meeting new people online. Some suggest that a few public meetings should happen in a row before agreeing to meet alone somewhere. Number 1. 39-year-old Sharon Winter was a loving mother of 4 in Liverpool and on the hunt for a new romance. Sharon, who her loved ones claimed to have depression and learning disabilities, found herself quite lonely and turned to the world of online dating to fill the expanding void in her life. She got lucky, or so it would seem at the time, when she met 33-year-old Kevin Hawke online in July of 2014. The pair got along very well and texted non-stop. Kevin came to Sharon's house a few days later for a first date. The couple apparently hit it off well because Kevin was living with Sharon after their first date. According to Sharon's friends and loved ones, though, a closer look at the relationship exposed Kevin as a controlling, verbally abusive partner that aimed to gain dominance over Sharon. Her brother tried to reason with her by explaining that she didn't know this new man well enough to let him live with her, and he also pointed out red flags of abuse and manipulation. Sharon told her brother she desperately wanted to be loved, and started ignoring his calls as she continued what would be her short-lived relationship with Kevin. A few days later, Sharon was found by police in her home, no longer alive. The investigation found that Sharon had suffered over 90 injuries, including stab wounds and blunt force trauma. It's unclear exactly how her body was discovered, but police were quickly able to piece things together and track down Kevin. He was charged with the attack, and in 2014, he was sentenced to 17 years and 6 months in jail for his crime. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos. And if you enjoyed this narration, maybe consider checking out my personal channel at youtube.com/Ty_knots.